Hello and welcome, this is Melsgunner, and with this video I'm going to be starting a new series covering the game Wargame Red Dragon. I just finished a Let's Play series of the previous title in the Wargame series of games, Wargame Airland Battle, and having finished that campaign, I am really looking forward to jumping into the last title in the series, the last title in the Wargame series, Red Dragon. The reason I'm looking forward to that is from what I've seen, reading the manuals, and what little playtime I've had with it so far, which is not a whole lot, it appears that this game has a lot of improvements over Airland Battle. As much as I like that game, it seems like Red Dragon is just a little bit better. So I'd like to jump into it, experience those improvements for myself. I'll explain what improvements and changes there are from the Airland Battle game to this one, and the ones I'm not as familiar with, we'll just experience together. With that being said, what I'll be doing in this series is playing the first campaign. So unlike Airland Battle, where you have 5 campaigns, this, I believe you also have 5 campaigns. Let's just count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 5 campaigns. So you have the same number of campaigns, but unlike Airland Battle, where all the campaigns were in the same location, it was more or less the same conflict, just different scaling of that same conflict. So the first campaign, very small scale, and then every successive campaign is the same conflict, just scaled up a little bit more. In this case, every conflict is a different conflict. So with the campaign we'll be playing, the first one, it'll be South Korea versus North Korea. This is the Busan Pocket campaign, but we also see where you could play as China, you could play as the United Kingdom, and so on. So you have different conflicts with different nations, and they're going to be in different locations, at least from what I understand. And we also see different years that they take place. So that's quite interesting in and of itself, and I'd like to get through all these campaigns, but we'll start at the very beginning. Now, I have done just the very beginning of this campaign to see how the campaigns work and so that I understand the mechanics, but I haven't played beyond one turn just to see exactly how a turn played out. So most of what will be in this campaign will be entirely new to me. It's mostly just coming from the previous game's mechanics, learning the difference in the two, and coming forward with that. We'll just kind of jump into things and figure things out from there. So let's go ahead and start this campaign. So this is in 1987, and we will be playing as South Korea, but we see that there's other nations involved, so we have the United States and North Korea as well. In 1987, when South Korea's military regime, shaken by nationwide democratic demonstrations, redeploys most of its military forces in the streets to crack down on the protest movement. North Korea sees this as the perfect opportunity to launch its long-awaited reunification campaign. So just like with Airland Battle, this is an alternate history. This is a fictional history, maybe based off of real events, but this obviously did not happen. So let's go ahead and launch the campaign, and we're going to get a little bit of a cinematic, something we didn't see in Airland Battle.
June 10th, 1987. South Korean dictator Chung Do-won, having reached the end of his official presidential mandate and willing to step down, announces his choice for a successor. This appointment, which oversteps any electoral process, triggers the wrath of the students and the liberals, who were hoping for democratic reforms. June 10th to the 18th, 1987. In a matter of days, over 1 million protesters take to the streets all over the country. U.S. forces in Korea are ordered to remain on lockdown in their barracks. North Korea does not fail to notice the situation in the south. Agents infiltrate designated circles in order to increase the level of chaos, while military forces are put on alert. June 19th, 1987. While police and security forces are about to be overwhelmed, President Chun mobilizes the army in the streets. Hard-pressed and panicked by a hostile crowd, an officer orders his troops to fire. In a matter of minutes, the shooting spreads all over the streets of Seoul. June 19th to the 21st, 1987. The crackdown is brutal, resulting in over 1,000 casualties and many more arrests. June 21st, 1987. With U.S. troops still confined to their barracks and the ROK Army deployed in the streets, North Korean leader Kim Il-sung decides the time has come for Korea's reunification. June 22, 1987. when the North Korean artillery barrage rolls over the DMZ at dawn. U.S. and ROK units, disorganized by the civil unrest, are taken by complete surprise. June 22nd to the 27th, 1987. Within a few hours, the first lines of defense are overwhelmed. Within a few days, the battered U.S. and ROK units are pushed back to a last perimeter around the vital harbor of Busan.
Okay, so that is more or less giving you a summary of what's going on. Major, I'm sorry, but I cannot get through to the general headquarters. All communications with the front are cut off. Oh, wait, yes, I think I managed reaching an advanced post of the 3rd Infantry Battalion. I'll put you through now. This is Sergeant June from the 3rd Infantry Regiment. They totally thrashed us. They're coming straight at you. They're not even stopping to take prisoners. At least 1 armored and 2 infantry regiments supported by more artillery than imaginable. Our HQ has just blown up and we only have 1 defense line left. Communication breakdown, Major. I'll try to get through to our headquarters and to the U.S. General Headquarters in this region. In the meantime, I'm giving you the reports on enemy troop movements. Roger that. Okay, so it's the computer's turn first. They get the first turn because they're the attackers. And we're just waiting for that turn. Okay, now it's going to be our turn. Major, I managed contacting the American headquarters. We should be getting information on their objectives shortly. In the meantime, here's the situation. Busan must not fall before American reinforcements arrive, which is in 3 days' time according to their promise. We're holding the 3 peripheral sectors and the enemy is surrounding us. We have few airborne and ground reinforcements, but they should enable us to make up for our losses, which will be inevitable. Good luck, Major. Okay, so now we can start our turn and we can get going. And what I'm going to do here is just try and explain really quickly the mechanics. Now, I'm going to make a little bit of assumption that you have seen my previous series, but I'll try and explain things in a way, if you haven't, that you get at least a little bit of an understanding. Now, the big differences I'd like to cover as well. So, first off, red's going to be the enemy territory, and blue is going to be our territory. And just like the previous series, or the previous title in this series, this is the campaign map, and this is going to work in a turn-based order. Once we actually get into a battle, we'll switch to the battle map, which is going to be an RTS. So you have 2 different styles of strategy game going to be played here. And right now we're in that campaign map phase. With that being said, just like with the previous game, we're going to have political power points that we can use to deploy units. Now, unlike the previous game, we do not have strike missions. That's been removed, and honestly, I don't see a problem with that because that was kind of a gamey element, made the game feel a lot more like a board game rather than being more realistic. So instead, we're just going to have forces that we can deploy, and again, it's going to work very similarly to the way it did in the previous series. So we're going to have to spend X number of political power points, and that's always going to be in the upper right corner here. So this unit is going to cost me 10 to deploy, this one 5, this one 15, and so on. I have 30 points for this turn. Next turn, I'll get more points, and that's going to depend upon what I control on the map. So different territories are going to have political power generation. We can see here, so the enemy has a few areas that are giving them 5 a turn apiece. So they have 3 areas, that's 15 for them. And we have a single area, Busan, which also gets us 15. So we're pretty equal there. Now, the enemy owns a lot more territory, though, as we only own these few regions here. So this is going to be the only region that actually gives us this political power. But if we lose this region anyway, I think we're pretty much going to lose the campaign. I might as well have lost the campaign at that point. Now, I do see that we have our objectives out here. I don't know if I noticed this the first time I played this campaign, but I was mostly just trying to look at the mechanics. So it looks like we have to control these 3 regions before turn 10. All right. With that being said, clicking on one of these units, it will give me an idea of where I can deploy them. We have land forces and air forces divided. Now, the big difference between this game and the previous title, Air-Land Battle, is that units are organized quite a bit differently, and some of their statistics are going to be different. So I'm going to go ahead and click on one of these units just so that we can go over what's going on with this unit and go over some of the differences. So the big difference that we have, rather than with air-land battle where you had a large unit, let's say a brigade, and that brigade would be a single unit and they would do things on the map by themselves, more or less. They would do things. One brigade would fight another one-on-one, regardless of how many units you had involved in a zone. So, for example, I have these two units here. If this was the previous title, this would be one unit, this would be another, and when the enemy attacked me, this unit would fight without the forces over here. They would fight as separate entities. That is not how it works in here. Instead, we have broken the units into smaller chunks, and they will fight together. So, usually speaking, the largest unit you're going to have is a regiment. So, you can always tell a regiment by the flag over them. So, if they have a flag over them, they're a regiment. The next lowest unit is going to be a battalion, and then the next lowest unit below that is going to be a company. So those are the three unit types, regiments being the largest, battalions being in between the two, and then companies being your absolute smallest. Now, battalions and regiments can do things on the map as you will. They can go and they can fight. Companies are only supporting units. They cannot do things on their own. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And a lot of that is because of the units involved. Without command vehicles, you cannot initiate combat. So regiments are always going to have command vehicles, as are battalions. So we can see here we have a command vehicle, here we have a command vehicle, and so on. So actually these are both battalions. As you can see, a regiment has a lot more command vehicles. So it makes them more able to do things as far as fighting battles, because if you have seen me play the previous title in the series, once we get into the strategic battles, where the battle map, you have to control zones, and how many command vehicles you have determines that. So if you don't have command vehicles, you can't control zones, you can't really fight. So that's why regiments are going to be able to do a lot more on the map. With that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the units. So as I said, these are smaller units now, so they're not going to have as many units, but they will fight together. So if the enemy attacks me next turn and they come into this area here, when they attack me, all of the units in this zone are going to fight. All of the units that they bring into that zone will fight. So they'll fight together as a singular unit when we get into the battle. It's a little bit more realistic that way. It may add more complexity because we have a lot more units on the map. But, for example, air power is a separate entity. So unlike with air-land battle, where your brigade would have an attached air power, now your air power is separated and you can engage at will on the map, and in that way it makes things a little bit more realistic, as I was saying. Another difference that we have is we can now refit units. So if we take losses, we can replace them, something you couldn't do in the previous game. If you lost all your air power in a particular brigade, that brigade just didn't have air power for the rest of the campaign. So that is quite a bit different. Now, the unit in question has to be in the appropriate space to be able to do that. That's going to depend upon the unit in question. So, in the case of air power, they have to be in an airport. In the case of some of these infantry units, I believe they have to be at a port to be able to refit. Yeah, ports enable land units to carry out refits and embark specific units on boats. Now, there are naval things that happen as well, and I think that happens later in the campaign. I have no experience with that, so that's something we're going to have to experience together. But if I remember correctly from what I saw of the manual, this is going to be a naval attack arrow indicating that we can do a naval landing here. So I'm going to guess when the Americans show up, they're going to probably deploy over here, because I think the sea route is where you deploy naval units. And then we're going to have probably a naval invasion against Seoul here to retake that. So I expect that to happen at some point, probably when the American reinforcements come. Okay, with that being said, let's go over the units and what they have as far as their stats. So again, if you've seen the previous game, some of these things are going to be familiar, but there are key differences. So we have morale, just as we had with units in the previous game. Morale is going to determine, just like it did in the previous game, how easy this unit is to defeat. The higher its morale is, the higher percentage of a point cost of the particular units you have to defeat to be able to defeat the unit in the battle. And I'm not exactly sure how this works 100%, but I think it's an average of all the units that are involved in the fight. So, as I said, these units will fight together. So you might have some higher morale units. In this case, all these guys have the same morale, so probably we'd be at a level of 3. But I think it does average, if I remember correctly. The next stat we have is cohesion. Now, this is going to work the way that initiative did in the previous game. So that might be a little bit confusing because we still have the initiative stat. But cohesion is going to determine more or less how many troops you can bring into the fight at the start and how many points you're going to get per turn. If you have good cohesion, it's going to give you a bonus, I say per turn, per set amount of time. As time ticks, you get deployment points in the battle. If you have cohesion, then you're going to get a bonus to that. So the more cohesion you have, the more of a bonus you have, which will obviously give you an advantage in the fighting. Now, just like initiative worked in the previous game, every battle you fight will lose you cohesion. So this unit only has 1 cohesion. So once they fight a fight, they lose that cohesion and they don't have any. We can use R&R to regain cohesion. I can't show that because apparently I can't do that with this unit because they don't have any initiative points, but we'll showcase that over here. For example, this unit does have initiative, so if I hit R&R here, I could regain my cohesion, something we'll probably do here in the near future. Initiative, even though it has the same name as a stat we saw in the previous game, is an entirely new stat. And the best way to think about this is that it is the action points that you have to do things. So everything that you do on the campaign map with a unit is going to cost you initiative points. And depending on what that is, it's going to cost you varying number of points. And depending on the unit, you're going to have varying number of points. So as I selected this helicopter unit over here, you'll see that normally speaking, if they didn't have any initiative spent at the beginning of the turn, this is kind of a special turn where some units already have initiative spent. In future turns, that won't be the case. You'll regain your initiative every turn. So again, if you think of them as action points, at the beginning of every turn, your initiative will be refreshed to full. So you can see that this unit here has a lot more initiative points than this one. So that means that this unit can do more in a turn. It can move more and so on. So usually speaking, to move a space, it's going to cost you 2 initiative points. To attack, it's going to cost you 1. So that means a unit like this that only has 2 initiative cannot do both. If they move, then they have no initiative points left over, so they cannot attack. Now, a unit can always defend regardless of how many initiative points they have. So if next turn, these units over here come over into this region and attack me, regardless of what my initiative is, I will be able to defend. So even if I moved a unit that only had 2 initiative into a zone, and then next turn the enemy came in and attacked me, that unit would still be able to get involved. But if it was my turn, I move that unit in, they've expended their initiative. When it comes time that I decide to attack, that unit just won't be involved in the fight. Maybe other units will have enough initiative points that they'll be able to do so. For example, this unit here has 3 initiative points, so that means they could move and attack. That unit would fight, but the one that didn't have the initiative points to attack will not. So although you may have more units in the region, you might not necessarily be able to attack with all of them. It depends on how many initiative points you have. Okay, with that being said, let's go ahead and give the last little bit of summary of what we have with each of these units. So again, if you're familiar with the previous game, this is going to be very familiar for you, but we have different troop types. And because of the specialization of these units, there's going to be a lot less diversity now. So this is an armored battalion. So we're going to see armored vehicles. As we can see, we've got logistics vehicles. We only have 1 because this is a battalion. Battalions are going to have a lot less than regiments. We have 1 command vehicle, and it's a tank. We've got a few logistics vehicles. This is going to be able to resupply our vehicles, our infantry, what have you, with the various supplies they need, ammunition, fuel, what have you. Then we have tanks. And as you can see here, we have a number of statistics. So every combat unit is going to have up to a possibility of 3 weapons. So these 2 tanks we see here, they only have 2 weapons, but they could have 3. It depends on the unit. Some units may only have 1 weapon. But if you look at the weapons in question, there is going to be a column of stats. So we can see that we have an M68A1. That's going to be our main cannon for this tank. And that is a 105 millimeter cannon. And it has a range, and that's going to attack ground vehicles only. It can attack helicopters or airplanes. It has a accuracy. Some of these stats are going to be a little bit different than what you saw in the previous game, but the idea is more or less the same. We have a stabilizer, so this is going to tell you whether or not the vehicle has a stabilizer and can fire on the move. In this case, this does not have a stabilizer, so it's probably best that you're stationary when you fire. You have AP power. This is going to defeat the enemy's armor, so the higher this is, the better it can defeat the armor. And this is a pretty good number. AP of 17 is pretty good. You have your HE power, and this is going to be attacking softer targets. That's what that's for. You have suppression. This is going to be the ability to affect the morale of a unit as you attack them. Then you have your rate of fire. This is 8 rounds a minute. Gives you an idea of the frequency of fire that this vehicle is going to give. The next column is going to be another weapon, and we have an M2 Browning. So this is a 50 caliber machine gun. It has range ground, but it also has range helicopters. So it can attack a different category of unit. We have accuracy, stabilizer, no AP power, so it can't defeat armor. We have HE power, suppression, and rate of fire. Now, you might see different colors. The colors are going to give you an idea of how good that stat is, comparatively speaking. So red's not going to be so great. Yellow's a little bit better. Green, and then blue. So gives you a baseline comparison for that unit. So the 105 millimeter cannon, that has a pretty good range for a tank. So a tank gun, I should say. All right, that gives you a kind of a basic idea of how the different units act. So if we were to click on this air unit, we see that it has planes. And the planes, again, we have the 2 weapons. So you've got the first column is going to be a machine gun. The second column is rockets, and those are going to attack various things. So the machine gun can attack all 3 things. It can attack ground, it can attack helicopters, and it can attack airplanes, whereas the rockets can just attack ground. So this is a ground attacker, which you can tell by this symbol up in the upper right. As a matter of fact, if I highlight over it, you see it's a ground attack squadron. So it gives me an idea of what this unit is and how it is used. And if we were to click on another fighter, for example, the F-16s here, we'll see that they're air superiority. So if you get familiar with the pictures and what they represent, you'll get an idea of what type of unit they are. And with all that being said, now we have to take our first turn. So if we take a look at things, a number of our units have no initiative. So all of the units that are in the regions that are adjacent to Busan, the units that are there are pretty much stuck there because they have no initiative points to be able to move. So this turn is mostly going to consist of putting myself in a defensive position. So let's take a look at what the enemy has and decide based off of that what we might want to do. So we see that there's some air power here. Now, the way that air power works is quite a bit different than the other game. Not only is it detached, but it's very different from other units as well. So other units will move into a region and then more or less operate in that region. You can do the same thing with planes, but with planes, once it comes around to your turn again, they will relocate back to the air base that they're stationed in. In this case, it's going to be this airport because this is the only airport we command. So all of these planes here are based in this airport. So we could, with this number of initiative points, we could send them all the way up here, but at the beginning of my next turn, they would come back. But it is important that they stay out for your enemy's turn. So if you want to use your planes defensively, that's how you would use them. So if I wanted to use these planes here defensively, I would, let's say we thought we were going to be encountering a fight here next turn, I'd put them in that region and I'd keep them there. And if the enemy attacked me there, then they'd be involved in the attack, or they'd be involved in the defense, as any unit that's in a region can always defend regardless of initiative. So that's how you can use air power in various ways. So you can use them to attack, you can use them to defend, but they'll always return to their airport. Every other unit would just stay in the region they're in until you move them out, which of course costs them initiative points to do so. Okay, so as I was saying, let's take a look at our enemy. So our enemy has some air power here. These are ground attackers. We can click on them and see exactly what type of ground attack they can do. So they've got cannons, which is kind of a universal weapon that they can use to strafe or attack other air elements. But the more important thing is the missile here. So we can see this is a ground attacking missile, and it has a very high AP power. So this is going to be used specifically to knock out armored units. Now, armor, I guess I didn't really go over too much, but if we click on one of our tanks, or we hover over one of our tanks, if you look in the lower right of this tab that shows up, you'll see front, side, back, top. That's the different armor locations and this armor value. So this M48 has terrible armor. As you could see, if you remember, when we clicked on this unit, this missile can defeat up to 28 armor. So it's going to punch right through the armor of our tanks. That's obviously a bad thing. And that's what this particular unit can do. The other unit that's in this space is a tank regiment. So as we know, regiment is the largest unit it can be, so this is a significant force. And we see, if we look at them, that they have 90 units overall. 24 are in their logistics, so they've got 6 of these vehicles, command vehicles. They have a forward operating base, 2 of those, and they have some cargo trucks to resupply them. Their tanks, which they have 56 of, fair number there. They have a couple different tank types, and we can see their values. Again, armor is not that great for our opponent. So if you remember, the cannon we had before had an AP power of 17. We could punch right through the armor that our enemy has. But they have pretty good AP power too, so they'd punch right through our armor. So our armor is not good, their armor is not good, but our ability to defeat each other's armor is there. All right, moving on. They also have recon units. This is going to give them line of sight, and we'll see exactly how that happens once we get into the real-time strategy element of the actual battle map. So it gives you kind of an idea of what they've got here. So this is just entirely a tank unit. They don't have any infantry outside of maybe a little bit of infantry that it technically counts as a recon unit, but no true infantry here. So that will be going against our armored regiment if it were to come across here. And you can tell which zones, one region to another by the arrows here. So this region is connected to this one. As you can see, there's an arrow here, but it's not connected to this one. So this guy can only move over here, or he can only move over here. So if this guy was going to attack me, he'd attack me here. So this would be the unit that we'd have against them, which is an armored regiment, but not nearly the same size. So as you can see, he has 90 units. We only have 34. He has 56 tanks. We only have 24. So we've already seen the M48s, although this might be a slightly different variant than over here. Maybe. But we're going to expect similar stats here. Maybe a little less range for our cannon, but AP power is still good enough to defeat the enemy's armor. We also have a K1 tank here, which is quite a bit better. And one way you can tell if a unit, how good a unit is if you look in the upper left, so right next to the flag, there's going to be a number. That's the deployment cost. So the higher the deployment cost, usually the better the unit is. So if we look at our enemy, they've got a 40 and 25. So these are fairly cheap tanks. Not really that good. But if we look at our K1s, which we don't have a lot of, we only have a couple platoons worth, but it is a lot more expensive unit. So as we can see, 17 frontal armor, that is actually good enough to shrug off the cannon of these two guys here. So that's a pretty formidable tank. We just are really outnumbered in that fight. We have to remember, these guys here are here too, so if they engage us, that'd be bad. We also have a number of units over here. So we've got an anti-tank company. We have a fire support company. So this is going to be what? Anti-air and mortars. So this is going to be artillery. And they also have another anti-air unit. So they've got some anti-air options and a little bit of artillery options there. The anti-tank company, pretty self-explanatory. They're going to be anti-tank vehicles. So these are going to be vehicles that are designed to destroy tanks. They're not going to be very well armored, but their ability to defeat armor is very good. And their range with these missiles, the anti-tank missiles, are usually going to be very good. Although in this case, this is a cannon, so may be able to outrange that guy. Okay, they do have a ground attacker, similar to what we have with our F-86s. So looks like napalm bombs and then some cannons. So that will be able to attack our infantry and will be devastating against us, possibly. They've got an infantry regiment. So being a regiment, they're going to have more units involved, but mostly infantry here. And then they've got an artillery company. So this is going to be more long-range artillery, it looks like. That gives you an idea over here. So they don't really have tanks over here. They're just infantry and then supporting vehicles. We have over here, we have another artillery company. We've got a tank battalion. So similar to over there, although it's a battalion, not a regiment. So numbers are a little bit lower. Oh, they're listed as recon vehicles too. That's weird. So a large number of cheap tanks that technically count as recon units for some weird reason. Okay, and then they've got an infantry battalion as well. So no regiments, but a number of battalions and a company. We already know we don't have a regiment over here, so we have a tank battalion. Again, not a lot of tanks here, and the tanks aren't that great. How good are their tanks? They've got T-55s, which are cheap. Yeah, okay, so these are cheap units. I think I already covered that. We also have an infantry battalion, so we're pretty well matched over here, but we have an anti-tank company as well. They have a lot more numbers, it looks like, though, from what I'm looking at. Now, the numbers don't necessarily tell you how good things are, but gives you an idea. So now that we know what our enemy is, let's try and work against them. So we have a... Now, we can't move any of these guys. They're stuck where they are. We've got a special aviation regiment. So this is a unit with helicopters. So we've got infantry, we've got varied things, but the important thing is that this is mostly like an airborne air cavalry, I guess would be the right term, air cavalry unit. So we're using helicopters to deploy our units. We have attack helicopters as well to attack the enemy with. We don't have a lot of initiative, and we don't have cohesion. Now you can see that this unit has a lot of potential to have cohesion, but it's all spent. So this is a good unit, I think, to R&R. It's going to give us 2 cohesion for, they just sit there and rest for a turn, and next turn they'll have 2 cohesion. We're probably going to want to do that so that we can use them more effectively in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and R&R these guys now. Now looking at our units out here, this is a good example of a unit that could also have good cohesion, but just doesn't. We can't really do anything about that. But some units that we have out here only have the potential of 1 cohesion. This is another unit that could have good cohesion, just doesn't because, you know, it's been fighting, you know, heavy fighting has been going on. Okay, we have a heavy armored battalion. They have initiative, so we could move them, but they have no cohesion. They're the K1 tanks. We've already seen that those are quite good, but expensive. And we do have a logistics vehicle because this is a armored battalion, so battalions are usually going to have at least 1 command vehicle. I'm thinking about sending that over here. I think that would be a good unit to send to support our attack. Now, I don't know if I really covered this, but as you can see here, a number of their units only have 2 initiative over here. So this would be the only unit to be able to attack me here. So if they attack me next turn, it'd just be the infantry battalion against 3 units, 2 battalions and a company. So they'd be quite outnumbered next turn. Coming over here, same issue. They only have 2 initiative over here. So the tank could come in here, but they wouldn't be able to attack me this turn. So I'm going to be, or next turn, I should say. So I'm going to be safe for at least another turn. They could move in, but then the fight would happen the turn after that. Looking over here, though, we have a lot more units that have 3 initiative, so we can expect these guys to be able to attack us next turn. So this is going to be where the fighting is most likely going to occur. So I think we're going to go ahead and take this heavy armored battalion, and we're going to move them in to this region. So we'll go ahead and do that now, and they've spent their 2 initiative points, and they are now in this spot. Okay, let's see what else we've got. We've got a logistics convoy. This has 3 initiative points, so we could use it to attack, but we won't. We don't have any logistics over here, do we? We just have cargo trucks, but no forward operating bases. This does have forward operating bases and more cargo trucks. Again, because we know the fighting is going to happen here, I'm going to go ahead and move this to the logistics convoy or company over there. Okay, so we also have a recon company. Do we have much in the way of recon over here? We do. It's infantry. This would give us expanded recon possibilities, but maybe better suited over here where we could potentially have fighting, as I don't think we have any recon at all because these are all battalion and company level units. So I'm going to go ahead and send this company, this recon company. So we've got these light Jeep type vehicles and another light APC type vehicle. We'll go ahead and send, it's only a couple of platoons, we'll send them over here to support these guys. Okay, so we've already moved all of our ground units, but that doesn't mean that we're done with ground units because we can deploy more. So what do we got here? We've got an anti-air company. I don't know if we necessarily need that because they do have ground attackers that might be good. But I think for this turn, not necessary. It is 10 points too. We've got artillery. We've got anti-tank. We've got attack helicopters, and we've got logistics. Now, I think we go ahead and spawn the logistics. That's going to cost me 5. We'll go ahead and put that in. And the important thing with... the important thing is, once you deploy somebody, you get to use them right away. So we get to use this guy. He already has initiative points. So we're going to go ahead and put him over here, because I think we could use a logistics, as we do have this anti-tank company. I'd like to support them if I can. So let's go ahead. We already have a logistics truck over here. Let's get another one over here. Okay, what else do we have? We have this anti-tank company. That could be very useful over here to support us against these tanks. So we know these tanks are going to come in. And then maybe next turn we'll get the anti-air company, because we know we'll get 15 points. And that will leave me 10 points left over, and we do have air forces here. So we've got this guy, which is worth 10, and we've got this guy, which is worth 15. Now, the guy that's worth 10 here is an F5, and it's got napalm bombs. The other squadron is a F4, and it has 25, that's quite a lot, of 25 bombs. So bombs like this are going to be mostly, it's going to give you HE power, so that you're mostly going to be using them against soft targets. And we already know, napalm is mostly going to be used to suppress and attack soft targets, infantry predominantly. Now, we know that infantry is going to be attacking us here, so that could be a good unit to get to support us. So I think I am going to spawn these guys. I keep right-clicking. That's how you move, not how you deploy. All right, so we've done that. We've got 15 points left over. So I'm going to go ahead and deploy the anti-tank company here. And we'll put them up this way to support these guys, because we know tanks are going to be coming our way sometime in the future. Okay, now to deploy our air assets. So we've got this F-86 Strike Squadron. I think this will be very good against the enemy infantry, so I'm going to go ahead and put that guy in there. I'm going to grab the F-16 because I'm suspecting that they're going to send some of their air power in here. So I'm going to get the F-16. This is air superiority. That'll give us good defense. I'm going to grab the F-5s because infantry force, they'll be good in that. So we have a lot of air power involved in this fight. I forgot to check. Do you have cannons? You do have cannons, so that's good. We'll be able to use that to a certain extent to attack their air power, but preferably we'd want the F-16s to do that. And I'm going to send the F-4s over here because it is possible for this unit to attack me here. They can't attack. Even the air power can't do it because the air power has to have somebody else fight the fight. They don't have a command vehicle, so they can't initiate a fight here on their own. So for that reason, I'm going to send the F-4s over here, just to support over here if we do have a fight. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up my turn. I've already spent all of my points. I've already done everything I can. Although we do still have initiative points with these guys because they're still flashing, but we put them where we want them. So that's where they're going to stay. This guy is going to be held in reserve and to defend Busan for us. Okay, now we've done everything. Let's go ahead and end our turn, and we're going to see the enemy get their turn. So their planes were redeployed, and now they have entered their planes into regions that we're in. So we are going to have a fight here. So as I suspected, this infantry is going to fight me. So we've got the infantry regiment supported by the fire support company and their strike squadron. So that's all that could make it in this fight based off of initiative. Now, for us, we have every unit that was in that square because everybody will defend. You always defend. So because of our cohesion, this is pooled together of all of our units, we're going to get 4 deployment points a second. Because of their cohesion, which is greater, they have 5, they're going to get 5 a second. Advantage to them. Because they have more cohesion, they can deploy more units at the start of the turn. We cannot. Minimal difference though, 50 points. we have a lot more units here. So our total value of forces is 6,610. Theirs is 3,400. Because they have 4 morale, they are going to, we need 40% to beat them. Because our morale combined is 2, they need 20% to defeat us. So they need 1322 and we need 1360. So very close. So although we have a larger force, they need a lot less percentage-wise to be able to beat us. We can kind of see an idea of the map and where deployment's going to happen. So we have Bravo and this location where deployments are going to come from, I believe, and then they have their region here. So we have options here. We can avoid the battle if we want, but I believe you lose morale doing that. I don't know if you lose any forces. We can auto-resolve. That would be the AI taking over, and I would prefer not to. Or we're going to launch the battle ourselves. So we're going to go ahead and do that option. So our opponent does have a little bit of an advantage over us just because of morale, but because we're the defender, we control all the deployment zones. Now, one thing you may notice if you've seen my previous series, there is a lot less deployment zones. At least that's what I've seen so far. So it seems that the deployment zones are fewer and more critical. It looks like actually we have 3 deployment zones to work with. So my job is going to be able to hold the line more or less. They can only deploy here, the enemy. We can deploy anywhere that's blue. If there was an area that was white, that would mean that it's neutrally controlled. No one controls it. So no one would be able to deploy there. For every zone that we control, we're going to get deployment points. And I believe you can actually see that. So +2, +4, +2. It looks like 2 Busan doesn't give us anything. To control a zone, we have to have a command vehicle like this. So I'm going to want to put this command vehicle in a spot where they're not going to be able to destroy it, because if they destroy it, I no longer have control over it. I'm going to delete the forward operating base for now because that will free up some points for me. Now, I have a lot of units involved in this fight, but I may not actually want to deploy some of them initially. Now, fortunately, I do have a little bit of an urban area to take advantage of as far as my defense, and we have a series of rivers where the enemy has to cross a bridge to get at me. So we can take advantage of that as well. But let's go ahead and start off by getting command units. Now, one thing that's a little bit different too is I think you have command infantry now. So in this case, this is command infantry, but it's in a vehicle. So I think you have to deploy them before they actually count for anything. But let's start with this unit because I believe it is the cheapest. Well, these guys are just as cheap. But let's go ahead and click this. And I'm going to try and control all of the 3 deployment zones. I'm not going to worry about Bravo, though. I can deploy there because I start with it. But it may be difficult to hold it without losing one of my command vehicles. I think I'll put this guy right there. For now, we can move him around later if we want, freely within the zones. Okay, now let's think about defense. So we have a lot of units to choose from. We have all the different troop types. So we have logistics, infantry, support, tank, recon, vehicle, and air. Air is going to be planes, obviously. Vehicles are usually going to be support vehicles. Well, supports that too, but they're going to usually be like tank destroyers. So that's exactly what we have here. So, oh no, actually that's not true. This is a flamethrower tank. So a little bit of an oddity there. So this is going to be an anti-infantry vehicle. May or may not use that. We only have a platoon's worth. I'll probably keep that in reserve for now. We've got recon. This is going to give us our vision. We only have a single platoon of that, so I'm going to have to spawn that strategically. We have the K1 tanks. These are very expensive, so probably not going to want to deploy them. A large part because if you get them destroyed, whatever their point cost is goes toward the enemy and what they need to defeat you. So they need 1321. If they get that much, they beat me. So we don't want that to happen. So until I'm sure that the tanks can do what they need to do without being vulnerable, which honestly, I'm only fighting an infantry force, but they could have anti-tank infantry. So I'm going to depend more on my infantry initially. We do have support, so this is going to be artillery here, it looks like. So this is rocket artillery. And then we have our infantry. Now, this is going to be the main basis of our fighting here because we have an infantry regiment in here. So let's go through them. So we have this unit, which I'm going to guess are reservists based off of what I'm seeing because these are mostly older weapons that they're using. So they've got their rifle, and then they've got an anti-tank weapon, which is the Super Bazooka, which is all right. Facing off against infantry, this could be effective. This is a fairly cheap unit, though. We have these guys, which I'm going to guess are more mainline infantry, as they have more modern weapons, and they have the Law anti-tank rocket instead of the bazooka. So a little bit more effective, as you can see, more accuracy, more AP power for that Law. Then they also have a machine gun to give them more suppression and fire support against enemy infantry. We have our anti-air infantry, so this has a Stinger surface-to-air missile, which is going to be good for knocking out the enemy planes. We know that they have planes, so this is good to have. We only have a single platoon of that, so it's going to be important that I deploy this strategically. We have anti-tank units here. 1,400 meters isn't too bad. Looks like we have 4 platoons of that. I think a lot of my defense is going to depend upon these guys. We don't really have tanks, but still the range at which we can attack vehicles is going to be important. So these guys are going to be important. What are our transport? All infantry is going to be in a transport. So it looks like we've got light APCs across the board. Okay, so probably not going to want them to be on the front line. All right, so let's go ahead and start over here. I think this is a fairly easy defense point. I'm going to go ahead and grab our anti-tank platoon and put them here. They can defend this bridge nicely for us. May want to give them some logistics options so that they can rearm. We'll go ahead and grab another anti-tank unit. We'll put them in the city here. This gives them good sight lines to attack either this bridge or this bridge. And then maybe another one here or somewhere. I'm not sure if I want them necessarily on the front line, though. We could put them there. I could give them a good zone to attack. We also have this area here. Okay, maybe we put an anti-tank platoon here and then a normal platoon. Okay, let's see. Guys, I'm gonna go here. And then we're gonna have our... I'm gonna use our full infantry here. Okay, so got that corner down. I think we need to work on predominantly trying to defend Bravo, because I did not put a command vehicle in there. We won't have advantage of those points, but we're still going to try and defend it. So go ahead and put our infantry here. We're going to grab another infantry platoon, put them there so they can defend this bridge. And then I would like to defend this bridge with some infantry as well, if we can afford them. So we'll put them there. Okay, so far so good. We have 250 points. Doesn't give us a lot left. I'm going to go ahead and grab anti-air unit. We'll put them somewhere. I'm not exactly sure yet. Let's get some forward operating bases in here. So I would like to be able to resupply. So forward operating bases is one way we can do that. Another way we can do that is with logistics vehicles, which are going to be these cargo trucks. I think we're going to focus on maybe a forward operating base here. We can even put it in the woods, so that does work. There's going to be a radius around the forward operating base where you can rearm, so that's why we put one there, as I feel like this is going to be an attack point. Now, this is going to be a little bit more important. We have one more forward operating base. It's going to cost me 75 to deploy, so it doesn't give me a lot of options for future units, so I am probably only going to be able to do one more infantry platoon, and that's probably going to be it for us. So I could put it here or here. I mean, obviously I'd want to be able to resupply my anti-tank unit here, but I also want to be able to resupply my infantry over here as well. And I'm trying to think what would be more important. Depends on where the main line of attack is. I think it's going to be more over here. So I am going to put the logistics over here. And then I do want that anti-air because the enemy does have anti-air. Or they do have air power, I should say. This is going to give us an element of defense. We can put them over here. That gives them maybe a little bit more distance from the enemy because... there we go. You can't put the vehicles in buildings like you could in the previous game. But they only have rifles, it looks like, so... Don't really, I think, want to have them on the front line as they have no way of defending themselves against vehicles. All right, so this is going to be my setup, and we'll use our deployment points in the future to get our air power, and I'll put this guy a little bit more in the middle so they can't necessarily storm him. Now, right now, this command vehicle is not defended, but I'm hoping this will be enough to hold these guys off. Okay, so that's going to be that. Now, one thing that I have different is now I can slow down time. So I'm going to go to bullet time, which is going to slow things down to the absolute slowest, and we're going to go ahead and launch the battle. So now I can unload. What just happened? Okay, it hadn't deployed yet. Okay, we can go like that. All right, I'm having trouble selecting units. It's possible that I told them to do the right thing. It took them long because, you know, we're going really slow. But this gives me an opportunity to move here, get our things happening, and now we can see that they've actually enacted. So I do not want to have these vehicles in a spot where they're going to get destroyed. So I'm actually going to move them over here to the periphery and use them. Now, they could support our infantry, but they're more likely going to just get hit by anti-tank munitions and blown up. So it's a pretty good idea to move them away. Now, these guys might be a little bit better because it'll help support the... I could move them over to here, though. Yeah, let's move them over to here. It'll help support the infantry. All right, so infantry will dig into urban environments like this. So you can see the blue zone here that shows our control. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and upgrade this to slow because we should have told all of our vehicles to move. Oh, there's one we didn't tell to move, these guys. Put them over here. Maybe a little bit deeper in the woods so that they don't get picked off too easily over here. Okay, so what we're going to be waiting to do, I would like to get air power up and going because I think the F-86 Sabres will be a pretty good force to use against our enemies. So I'm probably going to wait on them, although we might also want to have more infantry in here to support our units here. So let's go ahead and get back into slow. So this will go a little bit faster. Now, battles are usually going to go 20 minutes, but if I slow the battle down, obviously it's going to take longer, but this gives me reaction time options. Okay, so we are waiting for our points to go up. Now, as you can see, Bravo is gray because we do not control it. And that was a decision on my part because I thought it would be difficult to... Noticing something that I made a mistake on, perhaps? Oh, no, these guys were just bogged down. Okay, so we see the enemy here. This is an anti-air vehicle, and it is coming along the road here. I would like, eventually, to get a logistics truck out. These are going to be fairly cheap. And we'll get that going so that it's over here. Now, one thing I want to do real quick, I want to turn fuel and spare parts I might leave on, but I want to... That guy's not on the map yet. I want to limit the supply being wasted on fuel for our vehicles that may be in the area. And we're going to do a similar thing with that logistics trucks when it comes in. We only want it to supply us ammo. We don't want it to do anything else. So let's in here. So you're going to go there, which is going to help supply these guys. And our truck's not going to have as much supply, but it can resupply at the forward operating base, which has a lot more supply. Now, once I get enough, I'm going to get some air power going. We might be able to knock these guys out with that. Okay, we do have enough for one Sabre here. And I'm going to go ahead and have it attack right now. Because when you see air power, anti-air, out on the map, it's a good time to attack it. Gives you an opportunity to knock it out, of course. Let's just have these guys evac. We lost a line of sight just as we needed it. Hopefully we don't lose this guy. Okay. That's unfortunate. We just lost line of sight just as I needed it. That oftentimes happens. So we do see a command vehicle here. That might be a good thing to attack if I know that I can get away with it, of course. Unfortunately, because we took damage there, it's going to take us a little bit of time to... Oh, that's not a good thing. Okay, so unfortunately we deployed from the wrong side of the map, and we know the enemy's over there. So our cargo vehicle is just going to have to... First off, we're going to turn off fuel. They're just going to have to chill over here for the meantime. Okay, so we almost have 100 points. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to grab another one of these Sabres, and we may be using them fairly soon. Now, I didn't use any recon units, which may have been a mistake. Go ahead and just launch a mission on these guys. Napalm might be good on the bridge. Okay, so we've got some heavy fighting happening already. Okay, so what's happened here is our plane has gotten a little distracted. We're gonna have him come around. Yeah, he should be coming back around here soon. All right, let's get an F5 in here. And we're going to fire here. Drop some napalm. Having a hard time getting the F-86 to do what I want it to. Oh! That's not good. So we're going to get something dropped on us. Alright, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead. Drop this. Alright, screw that. Okay, I'm not getting these guys to cooperate. So we just lost some infantry there because of the... Actually, we didn't lose any infantry. They napalm strike me, though. Okay, we're getting a little bit of... Let's get some napalm in here. So I'm going to fire on this bridge. Okay, I want these guys to move over here, so they're not out in the open. We did manage to kill that infantry. That actually worked well in my favor. Oh, hello. Okay, we've got our anti-tank vehicle dealing with it. Pretty soon I'm going to have enough points to deal with this guy myself as well. Come on, give it to me. There we go. Go. Okay. There's our rockets. Got him. Okay. Send our cargo vehicle over here to resupply. Now we should have a free way through. And we burned through a lot of these bridges. So the enemy is going to have a hard time getting in here. Now I think I'm going to start looking for support. We might be able to move in here now that the fire has kind of subsided and kind of go back into the zone we were in previously. Maybe not. Okay. Okay, there we go. So we ended up right back where we started. So far, our anti-tank weapons have done a good job. Okay, I think we've done enough with air power, and now I'm going to focus on getting more infantry involved here. So I would like some more anti-tank weapons, perhaps, or do we just want more infantry? Grab some more infantry, and we'll put them in this building. Okay. Let's go ahead to deny our enemy this bridge, use of this bridge. I'm going to just hit this with napalm so they can't get to it. Okay. Let's go ahead and speed up time here a little bit. I'm going to want to get my... Okay, so they're moving in force over here. All right, we're going to have to keep an eye on that. Now, we do know that they still have anti-air assets. We can get some tanks over here to help us out in our defense. So I'm going to grab one, put that right there. We know these guys are expensive. All right, this guy actually moved in a semi-intelligent way. I should have told him to move fast, though. He would have taken the roads and probably already been there. Yeah, see, now we're out of anti-tank rounds, which is bad. All right, I don't want these guys to catch me, though, so let's stay a little bit away from them. Are they amphibious? They are. All right, let's attack them. Of course, we lose line of sight as soon as they slow this down a little bit. Now we've got the target. Managed to knock one of them out. Okay, we've got heavy fighting. Go ahead and hit this area with napalm. And then we'll come in and knock this guy out. Okay, we do have this guy coming. Probably going to drop napalm on my cargo. Where's my other plane? Okay. I'm pretty sure I sent an F-86 out. But I don't... Oh, there you are. Okay. Let's go after this guy. Send another one out. Let's set out another napalm mission. Okay. I got a little distracted there. Okay, our tank's over there. Okay, unfortunately, we were unsuccessful with our attack on the anti-air. We're going to hit it again, though. Okay. Let's grab some more air power here. Let's grab our F-16s as well. Okay. Go after this guy. As... Oh, we need to unload. Okay, let's get these guys out. Okay, we did manage to hit. Go after this guy. Really want to get that cargo vehicle in there, but unfortunately not been successful so far. Okay, let's go after the anti-air again. Does the F-16 have... No, it doesn't have any ability. Alright, we've been able to manage this pretty well with our air power. Worked as I have hoped so far. Okay. Go after this guy. Let's hit that anti-air again. Our infantry's held out very well, but they are being overwhelmed right now. Let's hit this. Get some more napalm down. Okay, they have managed to get some guys in the city. I'm going to go ahead and hit them with rockets. See if we can knock them out a little bit. Okay, we're going to drop a napalm here in a second. Okay. See if we can go after that anti-air again. How are we doing as far as points? Our infantry is really taking heavy casualties over here. Go ahead and hit these guys with rockets again. Let's put some more napalm down. Let's hit this guy again. Okay, so we've got 80% of the points we need. Okay, I don't have a lot of... I say I don't have a lot of anti-air, but I can get more. Okay. Let's hit these guys, because they will be worth a fair number of points. Let's hit these guys, because they're... Oh, hello. I wasn't paying attention. I could have gotten these guys shot down, maybe. Okay. Just evac. Okay, these guys can reroute. Let's try and hit this guy. Okay, so we have taken some damage. I can't get any... Oh, I must have lost some air power there. Evac this guy. Fortunately, I think what's happening is I'm allowing guys that are in mission to get shot down here. Which is not good. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and drop some napalm on these guys. Hopefully that will slow them. All right, we got enough points anyway. So I took a little bit of casualties there. How many points does it say that we got? Or they got? Okay, so we got total victory. This is a determinant of the difference in the percentage of points that you got towards your victory versus them. Okay, because the enemy loss is at 1360, which was our goal. Okay, our forces got a total victory because of that. They only got 205 points, which are 30% of sustained losses. So as a result of that, we are going to gain 2 morale, which is very good, as we know that this unit's morale is not that great. We do lose cohesion for doing the fight. and they are going to lose 1 morale point, and they're also going to lose their cohesion. So we'll be up on morale next turn, they'll be down on morale, and everybody lost cohesion. All right, so that was a little bit of a longer first video, but from here on out, the videos will be a little bit shorter as we'll take things one battle at a time. This was mostly just go over some of the mechanics. I know I may have glossed over some of the finer details and what have you, but from here on out, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to do the campaign without as much explanation. So in any case, I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. This is Mouse Gunner signing out.